Today we're going to start with a really interesting segment at Seabob here in Fort Lauderdale. Seabob is a product that many of you are familiar with that gives you a unique experience in the water, something that I never thought possible. We used it down in St. Thomas during the Caribbean Charter Yacht Show and had an amazing time with it. Let's talk with Klaus Kruner about Seabob. Klaus, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
I didn't realize you were way back there.
Good morning, Paul.
Nice to see you, and thanks for welcoming us to Seabob.
Sure.
What an incredible product. So I got to use it at the Caribbean Charter Yacht Show,
Yes.
which I thought was an amazing experience. It provides you the ability to move through the water effortlessly. Tell me a little bit about, where did Seabob begin? Where does this concept come from? Is this a James Bond sort of thing that we travel into secret caves with, or where did Seabob come from?
Well, Seabob is basically, it's a fun product. It's there was an inventor who was a very technical person, and this inventor had the idea to do e-mobility way before e-mobility was in everybody's minds. Back in Germany. He was not a water sports person. He was not anybody related to such product. He just had a crazy idea. And this gentleman, he has asked investors to invest in his ideas, and actually he failed.
Oh no.
So he went bankrupt, and the today's owner of the company back in 2004 said the idea is brilliant, everything, we just need to do it right. So he took over all the parts of all the other investors and said, I will do it on my own. And that is how we came up with the first generation of Seabob.
This is the generation 1 over here.
This one is generation 1 of Seabob. Generation 1 is it was a big success because Seabob basically is something that has not existed before. Electric water toys have not existed before. If you look at any reference, there was nothing like on the surface, underwater. These days we have all these toys. There was just nothing back in 2004, 5, 6 when Seabob came out. And so this one was, at that time, technology, perfect technology standards. It was heavy. So the market was very much limited to the super yachts.
Okay.
And batteries were different, battery technology was different.
So speaking of the batteries, we're going to see a little bit more when we get into the service area about how the battery exists in these. But in this generation 1 product, this whole nose cone and a central chassis system was your battery, correct?
And that is correct, yes.
So what we learned through the generation 1, whenever you got batteries, you've got heat to consider when you're utilizing it. So we learned through the generation 1 that there would be different battery configurations that would be superior to this original one.
Absolutely.
And the ways to make the unit a little bit lighter and more easily handled by one person without having to use a davit.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
we'll see that in the service area. But what a fascinating concept.
And I would like to mention one detail. Batteries, interchangeable batteries, are nice to have, and I know that people like it rather than recharging the unit to say I just plug in a new one. For everything that goes on the surface, that is relatively easy. For everything that has to resist, like Seabob, that goes down to 40 meters, 130 feet, it has to resist enormous water pressure. When you exchange a battery, you always have a minimal risk that you have some humidity getting in the system and or in the contacts, and you don't want that. So that is why generation 2, you recharge them, you don't interchange them.
So this used to have an interchangeable battery.
Yeah.
This whole nose cone would come off, another
Correct.
battery would slide in, and you were off and running.
Correct.
How long does it take to charge a generation 2 from depleted completely?
So if you have a quick charger, and most people have a quick charger, it's 90 minutes.
90
Otherwise,
minutes.
it's overnight.
Okay. All right. So we try in all of our Yacht Engineering Week segments to do something educational for our audience about a sector or a type of products. But with Seabob, it's the only one of its type. There's nothing else like this. So
I'm sorry for that.
Well, I don't think you really are, and I don't blame you. You guys have a proprietary technology. It's patented worldwide. So there's nobody else doing exactly this. With the idea of somebody else coming along doing something similar or different, possibly, but as it stands today, you guys are the only ones in the marketplace. So it's a really cool product, and as we see here in the Generation 1, this unit weighs, if I'm not mistaken, about 140 pounds, doesn't it?
Oh, that's correct, yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Generation 2 are these other ones that are here in the display area. Shall we go to the one down on the end that's
Yeah,
live?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, so interestingly, as we walk through them, we can see that we can virtually customize them any way we want. We have a standard palette of colors available to you, but if you wanted something done custom with decals or striping, or even we have a specific motif on one of them over there, you can
Yeah.
do it to your liking.
We can do it, yeah.
So there's nothing
Yeah.
time and money can't fix, and we got plenty of time, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's look at a live unit and see how it actually works.
So here basically you have what you do with the Seabob, you hold on to the two handles,
Right?
push the blue button,
And it
just
tells you
touch
on the
it.
display what to do.
And on the display it tells you what to do. It says push trigger. The trigger is on the right hand side.
Okay.
Maybe I didn't push it hard enough. So with the trigger on the right hand side, it allows you actually to, when you let the trigger go, the Seabob will immediately stop.
It goes to zero.
So the safety of the Seabob is you hold on to it, it will run, it floats, it has 100 Newton positive buoyancy, and when you let it go, it will stay on the surface, but it stops immediately.
What I found interesting was that it's surprisingly easy to hang on to as well. It's not something that you have to put a death grip on for it to pull you through the water. It's something that's very comfortable in your hand. It's ergonomically very logical. And it took me a matter of seconds to understand the workings of it. Simply by pushing one button, you speed the motor up.
Correct.
By pushing the other button, you slow the motor down. And when you speed it up, it stays at that setting until you ask it to go to a lower setting or a higher setting. And again, if you let go the trigger, it goes
stops,
to zero,
yeah.
and
So
it's buoyant.
If you can see, it's like cruise control in your car. Every time you touch the green, you get more power. Every time you touch the red, you reduce your power. You let the trigger go, you hear it, the engine stops immediately.
And as soon as you activate the trigger, it goes back to the previous setting.
Yeah. What I would like to mention is people sometimes ask, is there any rotation here in the back? There's no rotation. There is the intake underneath, and the impeller is inside, so you can,
Way
while
inside.
the Seabob is running, you can put your fingers here in the back. There is no issue whatsoever. Does the water stream hit you? No, it does not, because basically when you are in the water holding onto the Seabob, your legs are floating on top and your body is floating on top of the Seabob body, so you don't feel
Yeah, and the water
anything
jet
about that.
goes underneath you. You don't
Yeah.
even feel it.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a look in the service area of a disassembled Seabob that allows us to see the motor, the batteries, the configuration of the hull. One of the things that I found very interesting was that the intake is here on the bottom,
Correct.
which allows the intake propulsion water to come into the motor and be exited out the back. The other jets here, they're not really jets, they're
No,
intakes.
it's intakes, yes.
What
which
they
you
do
have
is they
here in
allow you to
these areas.
steer more easily.
Yeah, basically the water is flowing through the body of the Seabob, and that makes it so easy to handle it. With a little bit steering of your body or body movements, you make it go down, you make it go up, you make it turn right, make it turn left. If this was a closed block, there would be much more water resistance, much less speed, and it would be much more difficult to handle it.
And the other huge benefit is that allows it to cool the batteries as well.
Yeah.
So we've seen what the unit looks like, and we've got a lot of footage of what the unit does in the water and how people use it. Let's take a walk into the service area and let's see
Okay.
how this unit looks disassembled and what sort of things do we normally have to address when they come in for service.
Okay.
Okay, let's take a look in there. So this is service room 1, Klaus, and this is where we do our initial checks, if I'm not mistaken.
That is correct, yes.
You receive the unit, you disassemble it,
Well, we receive the unit and we connected actually the electronics to our PC, where we can read out actually if there is any default. We can read the batteries, we can read the PCB, the electronics board. We can read whether there is any issue with grips. So basically, we first read out any potential errors.
So you can tell if there have been any codes.
There are codes, and we can
Okay.
we can electronically read that out, and that is also outside service centers would have the same ability to do that.
Okay.
So they are all trained service technicians. They need to go to Germany for 1 week in order to get authorized to service Seabobs.
But this is the largest service facility in North America.
This is the largest globally.
The largest
actually,
globally, okay.
Which we have here.
So the way we have our system right now, it's actually rotated 90 degrees from the way that it sits in the body, and
That's correct,
the
yes.
unit itself is upside down.
Yeah.
So this would be our intake right here, which comes in
Correct.
on the bottom, and our motor is here,
That's correct.
our electronics are here,
Correct.
and these are our batteries.
These are the batteries. And
So-
other than what we had in the batteries of the first generation, they are round, cylindrical. So that allows much better cooling, number one. And secondly, a cylinder by nature has the best resistance to pressure.
Of course, there's nothing stronger than an arch.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So tell me a little bit about what we were doing. When we came in, we saw that she was hooked up to a pressure unit. We test these for...
After servicing, before servicing, actually, in order to notice whether there could be even the slightest little cut in one cable, and after servicing, we do a pressure test. Seabob must be able to go down to 40 meters, 130 feet. So there we have 4 bar of pressure. So no humidity, no water may come through any leak. So that is
4
why
atmospheres of pressure
Yeah.
at 40 meters. So therefore, you got to realize that even the slightest deficiency is going to be significantly amplified.
Yeah.
So we have to make sure that the integrity of the system is such that we can dive to that depth without any compromise whatsoever.
Yeah.
Perfect, perfect. So the first thing that we do is we come in, we test the integrity of the system to make sure that there's nothing inherently wrong when we got it.
Correct.
And then we also hook up to the electronics to see if there have been any codes, if there have been any problems, or if you're detecting anything wrong with it before you even begin the servicing.
Correct.
Okay? All right. And then that's what's done in this first room.
That is in both of the service rooms. So there are 2 identical rooms with the identical setup with our trained service technicians. So both are taking care of Seabobs from A to Z.
Okay. All right, from beginning to end. So we have one in the other service room that's a little bit further disassembled. Let's
Yeah.
have a look at that one.
Okay.
So this one's really down to the bare bones. This is our electronics casing with the electronics removed and our motor here. And you can see that the housing for the electronics has a gasket for it to keep everything completely watertight. So what are some of the most interesting things you've ever found inside these cases when they come in? I'm sure you've seen any bullion, any Spanish treasure.
Yeah, I wish. No, mostly shells, big pebbles,
Okay.
and once in a while some nylon line or some dock line, because sometimes they may use it around the boat,
Okay.
and there's some cut dock line. Sometimes they'll get trapped in the impeller.
Okay. But
Most common shells.
What was not inside but outside, we had one Seabob with a shark bite actually.
Oh, did it?
no kidding. Wow. Okay. All right. Are they Kevlar or fiberglass? No, they're just fiberglass, right? So this unit, if I'm not mistaken, this is a 7-year-old unit.
Yes.
And I find that really interesting because there's no more harsh environment on the planet, in my opinion, than the ocean. Salt water is an incredibly corrosive material. So the way you've built these units and the way it allows you to completely flush them and get all of the salt out leaves you with a unit that's 7 years old that's still in remarkably good condition.
Yes.
I mean, if people take good care of Seabob, then it does not need maintenance. I mean, what you need is keep them charged at all times. So we have a trickle charger and you just keep it plugged in. Battery management system will make sure that the battery does not suffer any damage from it. And keep it clean, hose it down with fresh water after use in the ocean.
Rinse it all off real good and keep it
Yeah.
charged up.
Yeah.
That's interesting because so many of the things that we use on the boats require so much maintenance on an ongoing basis that the Seabob, while it is a fairly complex piece of machinery, is self-contained and it's quite easy to maintain. So after we've done with all of our service work on these, we reassemble it. We have a testing facility as well.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
let's go take a look at the swimming pool and see
Okay.
what the test looks like.
Big pool.
All right. So we've been to service area 2. Now we come into the test facility, and here we have basically a big jacuzzi or a test pool for the units. When we take the unit and when we put it all back together, we want to test run it. So here's our pool. We drop it in on the harness and on the framework, and then we can crank it up on the computer.
Yeah. It is connected. It is connected to the computer, so we can see all the development of how the batteries are running, and we test it through until the battery is totally drained down, so that we can get all these data, which are then stored in our SAP system, so that service from all over the world can see on this specific unit with this VIN number what service has been done, what results it had in the last pool test.
So each unit is tested from a full battery charge to complete battery depletion. And
Totally
it gives
is.
you all of your
Yeah.
temperatures and powers, and all of the parameters are logged in.
Gives all these data, and all these data can be seen by the service center back in Germany, can be seen by all the major, so wherever we have a Seabob coming in, people can get all the data in order to know what has been done prior to them and what test results they had. Every Seabob itself, after manufacturing, run 3 pool tests back in Germany in the manufacturing plant, so that we know that it is 100%
So
perfect.
every unit that's built is field tested, if you
Yes.
will, and
Yeah.
then anytime it's serviced, it's completely tested as well.
Correct.
So here in your facility, we have a lot of racks around us. We have units that are in for service, I think, over here, correct?
Yeah.
And then we have units that have been serviced that are ready to be sent out.
Yeah. Correct.
Okay? And then we have a lot of black cases up here.
Yeah, these are the ones which are our inventory for sale. We
Okay.
are lucky that during the whole crisis of chips and supply chain, we always, with our German manufacturing, had a little, we just kept up with the demand, so to say.
The chip crisis created some problems, but you guys got ahead of it
Yeah.
in order to be able
Yeah.
to meet your demands.
Yeah, absolutely.
And here in the center, we've got units that are ready to be shipped out today.
That's correct.
Excellent. So Fort Lauderdale, State Road 84, largest service center globally, and also our shipping point for all the units in America.
That's correct.
Beautiful. Okay. We're going to go back into the showroom. There's a couple of other things that I'd like to learn about the units as far as the practical application and
Okay.
utility of them. So that's fascinating that we test every unit for its entire capacity as soon as it's serviced. So when it goes back out into the field, everybody who has one knows it's ready to go like brand new.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Very
mean, that's
nice.
necessary.
So one of the things that I see here is an AquaBanas style docking station.
Yeah, that is correct. Actually, we developed it together with AquaBanas.
Okay.
Mark is a very good partner of ours.
Right.
We call it's a lifting dock. So basically, even though Seabob is now only 70 pounds, other than the first generation, if you want to bring it up to the bridge, or if you have a center console and you don't have a bathing platform, it is much easier with a little davit. It
Sure.
could be either one you put in the rod holder on your boat. It can be a big davit to bring it up to the bridge. This one allows you to bring it up easily, and at the same time, if you want to keep it in the water while anchored, it does not bump against the hull, so it's like a little parking garage.
And it doesn't run away.
It does not run away. Nope.
Beautiful. Very, very handy. So when we have it, let's say we're in a bigger boat and we have it stored in a toy garage or a tender garage, we'd have our rapid charger maybe mounted on the wall, and
Correct.
plugs right in underneath
Yeah.
the screw top in the center of the unit, and then we can also keep it.
in the bag, and
the
we
bag.
have the rack here in order to hang it. So for the charger, for us it is important, as you say, in the toy garage, we are ISO certified that there is no spark. There is, so one can safely store it together with gas-powered vehicles.
So you don't just wire an end onto something and
No,
plug it in there.
is
You've
all
got to use
proprietary.
the
It's-
ISO certified
Yeah.
charger for safety's sake.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So speaking of safety's sake, you mentioned to me that there are a couple of different settings that we can put into the unit. Let's go back over to the display that we were looking at earlier.
Okay.
And if I'm not mistaken, you can set limits on the unit depending upon who's going to be using it.
Absolutely. So when you have the Seabob turned on, you have a basic safety that says it will not go below 2.50 m, 8 feet. And if you want to go deeper, you have to override the setting with a pin code.
Okay.
And every time you turn it off, it will go back to its original setting so that nobody can inadvertently go down deep. You can also limit
So
the
let's
speed.
go over that again real quick. So
Yeah.
2.50 meters or 8 feet
Yeah.
in US measure. So the unit is preset that if you go deeper than 8 feet, it shuts off,
It
or it
shuts
goes
off.
to a zero
No, it
propulsion.
It goes to zero propulsion.
Okay.
So that it will slowly come up a little bit. Once the pressure sensor will notice that the pressure is lower than at 8 feet,
Right.
the engine starts on
Then
again.
it starts again.
So-
So you said that these units will go to 40 meters.
Yeah, 130 feet.
So in order to do that, you have to deliberately tell it you
Yeah.
want to go below
So
2.5
you
meters.
get when you purchase your Seabob, you get an owner certificate with your owner pin, and then you simply have to put the pin code in. Let me try to do that quickly. So this is the one for this single unit.
This isn't
and-
the master code for all units. This is just the one
that's
for this unit.
For this
Okay.
unit. And now you confirm with trigger. The trigger is like the enter key on your keyboard.
Okay.
And now you can go down the menu, diving depth. Now it says 2.50 meters. You could put it up to 40 meters if you wish. Confirm with trigger. Now you can go down to the maximum power level if you want to give it to kids and you say this unit has 6.5 horsepower, you don't want kids to run at 14 miles per hour. You can just say maximum power level 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, confirm with trigger. You can have a maximum start level for rental operators or charter yachts. You can put a timer in so that people cannot go longer than 30 or 40 minutes. And then it will go down to a very low power level so that you can return, but you don't enjoy it that
It
much
does have
anymore.
a get home feature.
Yeah.
Okay. I wouldn't want them to go 30 minutes away from the boat and then be
Yeah.
stuck out there.
You can put a user pin in so that nobody can grab it without getting advice and just start with it. So you have system data and then at the end exit, and now your settings are
back to zero.
stored. Now your backings are stored when the engine shuts off. After 10 minutes of being idle, then you will get back to the original settings.
Okay. So it automatically goes back to your presets,
Correct.
your factory presets, after being idle for 10 minutes.
That is correct. yeah.
Okay. Very cool. So it's a unit that offers a lot of different versatilities. It gives you the ability to be very professional and go as deep as 40 meters with a speed of up to 14 miles an hour.
That's the top
Under
speed.
the water?
Yeah,
That's moving
correct,
through
yeah.
the water pretty fast. Don't
Oh,
turn
yeah.
your head sideways or your
Yeah.
mask is coming right
Yeah,
off.
no, that's right.
Or you can set it to a much more docile setting for newbies, for kids. So it's really a unit that's great for everybody.
Yeah, I should say that's why everybody loves it. And one thing that is particular we love about the Seabob is first Seabob was in the water in 2006. So the first Seabob was e-mobility in the water before the first Tesla ever hit the road. So everybody says technology, e-mobility, the first one was Tesla. No, Seabob was before.
So was Elon Musk caught riding around on one of these things when he came up with the idea for a car?
I don't know.
I don't think he would admit it either. Klaus, thank you so much for your time. The product is an amazing product. As we mentioned earlier, it's the only one like it. There's nothing else out there that does what Seabob does. And while we try to make our segments here for Yacht Engineering Week educational about a sector of the industry, when you got the only one, it's pretty hard not to use Seabob as the standard. Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you very much for coming here.
I appreciate your time. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back after this.
And that's a wrap for today. Yacht Engineering Week 2023 has been brought to you by our title sponsor, Pantropic Power, the local cat dealer, and our anchor sponsor, Robert Allen Law, the business of yachts. We would also like to thank our segment sponsors, Lürssen, Viking Marine Exhaust, Zemos, Marine Data Solutions, MPI, Bradford Marine, Ditech, Lewis Marine Supply, MPT, Tropic Ocean Airways, Ward's Marine Electric, Seabob, AquaBanas. We'll see you again tomorrow, 9:30 sharp.